And now the recording is in progress.
I like
Good,
being in progress. I hate being halted.
good afternoon, everyone. This is William F. DeVault, U.S. National Beat Poet Laureate Emeritus and CEO of Venetian Spider Press. With me today is the incredible Lawrence George Jaffe, known to many, including me, as Larry. I've known the guy for more than 30 years.
Is
30 years. Wow. We originally met on AOL in the old Writers Cafe, where we hung out with a lot of other colorful characters. But we're not here to talk about the past. We're here to talk about his new book with Venetian Spider Press. Only the Shadows Breathe. He's holding it up right now. And it's an interesting fusion of genres in that he's merged the classic film noir thriller with poetry. And what gave you the idea for this, Larry, originally?
well, I'm not sure. What happened was I love Pulp Fiction. I mean, I'm a devoted fan of Hammett and Chandler and others, and my friend Harlan Coben. I really love the genre. I enjoy the and going back even to Sherlock Holmes. I mean, I love his deductive capacity. Um, what I try to do is like sort of like melding the genre, but also bringing in another force of old time radio drama.
There you go.
So what I did is a poem for each of the characters in the book, plus actions taking place. So I could write from their voice without hindrance.
It's
When
more
when
like an, no, go ahead, please.
when you're writing a novel or fiction, you're even if you come up with the villain's voice, it's only for a short segment.
Is it true?
My idea was to create a real voice for our predator, a real voice for our lady in distress, and our private investigator, Mr. Hatcher, who's also a poet, of course,
Of course.
who solves crimes. So that was one part of it, or I'd say two parts. That's the poetry, and that's the poetry noir side. Then there's the introduction of what I call the narrator.
Mhm.
Just like on old time radio broadcasts, the narrator would set the scene and tell you what was going to happen and really move you into the moment of what that next character was going to do. So I
Absolutely.
created a man named Mr. Baker, named after Baker Street,
I figured as much.
and I call him the narrator, and he's his own voice.
Yep.
He's overlooking the transition from poem to poem, character to character. I think the best thing to do is give you an example.
Please do. Please do.
This is what I said about the about Mr. Baker. I said, I'd like to present you with the narrator of these poetic tales. I created the narrator to provide some continuity to the poetry, as each piece provides a narrative and component to the overall story. The narrator is the storyteller and chronicler of the events between victims, predators, and of course, our beloved hero, Hatcher, poet, and private eye. Think of this volume of noir poetry in an old time radio broadcast with the narrator explaining the goings on to the audience, you. The raconteur moves you through the storyline, keeping you moving along till the ultimate climax.
Mhm.
So,
I think you did a very good job there. You mentioned earlier about some of your idols. You mentioned Harlan Coben.
yeah,
I know that he wrote a blurb for the book that's actually in
yeah,
the book. Would you
he
like to
got
read
me
it for us?
some. You got me smiling there. Um, this is what Harlan had to say. Like all of Larry Jaffe's poetry, the words are tools to tell the story. He offers hope out of the morass we call life. Only the Shadows Breathe is a unique and heady blend of poetry and detective fiction, poetry noir, if you will, and I loved it.
Fantastic. I'm jealous of you. 30 years ago, I tried to get him to write a blurb for me, and he was like, I don't do poetry. So
I don't know, we hooked up and we've stayed in touch. He's got incredibly successful and
yes,
for good reason.
yep, he writes fantastic stuff that's very popular. He's getting movies made off his work. I mean, just absolutely great career and couldn't happen to a nicer guy. So
Absolutely. He deserves every moment that he's achieved.
I noticed you brought up Sherlock Holmes, and I'm gonna throw a snob appeal thing at you. I've always preferred M. Dauphin, Edgar Allan Poe's deductive detective from The Murders in the Rue Morgue and The
Right.
Mystery of Marie Roget, which came before Sherlock Holmes.
This is true. I don't know. I just have an affinity for old Sherlock. And
Whatever
maybe
works.
part of it is using of Watson to
Oh yeah,
chronicle the story. So in a way, Hatcher uses me.
there you go. There you go. So what do you want readers to get from your book?
Oh, aesthetic pleasure.
That's important. In
You
these
know,
days, in this day and age, aesthetic pleasure
you
is
know, I
hard to
want
find.
them when you do this, and I did something similar with another book on human trafficking. When you put yourself totally in the voice of the character you're writing about, it's very different than watching a film or reading a novel because you become that poem
Hmm.
and that beingness, the creation of that character is fully there. And as you move from poem to poem, you see the development of the character. It's a very different read than reading other poetry books because even themed ones, you don't have the same, I'm trying to brag about this, but characterization of what you put your heart and soul into each poem. And it's certainly a big difference from Moon and June type poetry for
Yeah,
sure.
it is.
But I'll never be accused of writing that.
It has a very nice narrative flow. Obviously, I had to read it a few times because I oversaw the editing on it, and I enjoyed it more than I expected to be honest.
Well, that's coming from you. That's a mighty big compliment, William.
Well,
So let me give you an example of Mr.
please.
Baker and the poem. And he says, this is the title poem introducing you to the collection. A simple ditty to take you to the heart of the land where only the shadows breathe. The poems that follow help set the stage and create the scenario for a land that has lost all sense of morality. Or does that seem appropriate today?
Oh, yeah.
So this is only the shadows breathe. Life is a lost tombstone where only the shadows breathe. A quaint soiree lost in culture without civilization to back it up. Here mendicants accelerate their yearning and mothers prostrate themselves, falling backwards on tuning forks in annihilation of sin. A complex artifact vanishes in this temple of disquiet. Monks have indecently and rabble rousers show their face, and in this place where only the shadows breathe.
Ooh, nice setting the stage there, my friend.
And that goes into the second poem as still part of the same narrative, Behind the Shadows. Behind the shadows lies a rich darkness, deep, thick, and pungently delightful. like cutting-edge chocolates that seep between your lips and invigorate the soul. Behind the shadows lies seduction, too sensual to be conceived by mortality, like organic honey licked from sensual fingers.
Wow.
Well, I moved into a little bit of your romance there.
Trying to seduce the reader in. Nothing wrong with that. A little sensuality goes a long way. I have to admit, we are currently looking at your book from a standpoint of what prizes we can nominate it for in the coming year. I know we
Okay.
already nominated one of your poems into the Pushcart Prize, along with a few of our other writers. Um, our Nicholas Masiochi, who's one of our other writers, we nominated him last year for the Pulitzer,
Well,
and he didn't win. That was his second time nominated, but I mean, it's
hey,
nice
a
to be nominated.
nomination is a nomination.
Yeah. Patricia Nwoko, who we published just this past year, is now been officially nominated for the Maya Angelou Literary Award,
Well,
which would be really great if she could get that. And we have several other people who've also been nominated for the Pushcart. But I'd really love to see you write a sequel to this book. This could be a whole series of books.
I already started just this
Do
week.
you have a publisher in mind?
Just this week I had, I was talking to the shadows thing. See, and I sent you a little manuscript.
Right.
I've created a new way of planning for myself because planners are one-dimensional and they never work for me.
They don't work for me either.
So I created what I call not conservation, conversation planning, conversational planning, where I talk to the project. At its initial stage, it's in a bunker with other projects. As I start growing that project, it spins off to its own planning page.
Right.
And I talk to the project, and the project tells me what it wants, what it needs. And by this way, I'm instilling life in the project. And it's been extremely successful since I developed this a couple months ago.
All
I
right.
know it wasn't part of this conversation, but I wanted to mention it.
I know this is not your first time in the rodeo. I notice you're wearing your unprotected poetry cap. You want to put a
Yeah,
plug for that or any of your other works? Please feel free to.
I'm all about the branding, you know.
Hey,
But how do you like that cover, boy? That cover is hot, isn't it?
that cover is amazing. And for those of you asking, Larry's the one who brought the illustration to us. We actually prefer to go and find our own, but once in a while somebody brings us something and says, "Hey, you should use this," and we go, "Yeah, yeah." There wasn't any way we were going to really improve on that. So fantastic, man, fantastic.
So I'm going to give you another section here. This is Mr. Baker,
Ah,
our hero, a rising star himself. He fancies himself king of the poetry underground and a fanatically superb detective of the private eye variety. Hatcher, private eye. My name is Hatcher, poetic tour de force and gumshoe. I come by my handle honestly, well, sort of. Folks in the know me. You won't find me in yellow pages. I'm anything but yellow. I'm not your stalking dick. I don't do bullshit assignments, no marital crap, no conjugal anything. I'm who you call when you've got no one else. I'm who you call when only the shadows breathe.
it's nice. I like that.
And this is another poem from up in the beginning. I really got a kick out of this because I actually turned it into you late,
Yes, I remember.
but Mr. Baker speaks. Hatcher's first case was an impossible doozy. Some say it takes a twisted mind to solve a twisted case. Perhaps that is so, but it still remains that no one could solve the case of the dead woman bicycling, but a poet turned gumshoe by the name of Hatcher. The case of the dead woman bicycling. Mystery surrounds us. How could a dead woman ride a bicycle?
Downhill.
But corpses don't lie. It was not a bicycle built for two, just your routine mountain bike, the color of cerulean blue, a so-called girl's bike without the bar. Although it makes you wonder why a boy would want a so-called boy's bike with a bar that could injure tender bits. But that is all rhetoric. Questions must be asked as to how a girl, really a young woman, could be dead and still pedal. It seemed impossible, an act of hypocrisy that no one could solve. Could this dead woman drive through traffic lights, get caught on CCTV at various intersections, yet still be dead?
Wow.
Hatcher, watching the video frame by frame, had a so-called aha moment. As he watched for the 13th time, it seemed the dead woman had a twin who did the peddling and swapped herself for the dead woman who died from hands not unseen. Fingerprints proved the action and showed that the dead woman was not resurrected nor resumed living for a while. The dead woman was truly dead, and her twin sister, well, let's just say Hatcher saved the day and brought justice for the dead woman who was not riding the bicycle after all. It was the sister, of course.
And see, up until that point, we were almost looking at it like a locked room mystery. How could
Yeah,
that be done? You demonstrate how. You resolve the case. Thank you.
it's so much fun with this book. And then you hit me after you said you wanted, well, you only need 30 more pages. And I'm going, oh, 30 more pages, 30 more poems or so.
It's a natural prejudice of mine. I spent so many years putting out cheap little chapbooks of my
Yeah.
work. And when I switched over to Venetian Spider Press, I basically set a rule that our books would be thick because people want value for their dollar. They
You're
want
right.
something they can take to the beach or, sit in their car at lunchtime or whatever and read rather than just go, oh, that was cute. So,
Well, you pushed me and I love you for it because it made the book better.
hey man, I love you. I love your work. I've known you for many years. You were the guy who welcomed me to Los Angeles with open arms when I moved out there in 96 or 95, whenever it was. Been a few weeks.
Seems a couple of lifetimes ago, yeah.
It seems like it, man. You let me work with you on your Incognito Cafe website, which was a
All
poetry
right.
website. In fact, I was twice Poet of the Month. And I used to hang out a little bit at the open mic readings you would hold.
Yep.
So
The Moondog, may it rest in peace, got
yep.
converted to a sushi bar. Like the world needs more sushi bars.
I can't imagine reading poetry in a sushi bar. I don't know why. To
I
me, it's
did
something
do
else.
that though. There was a restaurant in almost in Silver Lake called the Zen Restaurant, and I knew the owner. And
I've heard
and,
of it.
and then when Moondog had its convulsive conversion, he had a back room in the Zen, and the readings were able to continue. So
I'm sure if we got a bunch of our friends who are poets together and had them talk about their most interesting places they've read, we'd get some interesting stories.
yeah,
I know I've got a few of those, and I know
the
you do.
worst though was reading in a steakhouse. Oh my God.
I read in a sports bar between hockey games.
Yeah, I did. I've done that too. But the steakhouse, everybody's eating freaking steak, you know. I don't want to hear poetry. I mean, and they were having digestive problems probably.
I once, I don't talk about this a lot, but I once read at a swingers club. I was not involved in anything going on, but it
Uh-huh.
was a club for individuals who were busy swapping partners. And the main floor had a big buffet, and I was reading next to that, and then the upper floors were clothing optional. And a friend of mine talked me into doing it, and I would never do that again. Never.
Yeah, and then there was the time I was at the biker bar with the metal screen protecting the band
Oh yeah.
or protecting the poets, as in this case. That was weird.
Good old days, man.
Bunch
Good
of
old days.
rednecks listening to my poetry.
Sometimes you find an appreciative crowd in the least expected space. So,
True.
you have anything else more you want to read for us?
Yeah, I want to read. This is, well, we'll let Mr. Baker speak. Yeah.
All right.
Our predator thinks beyond the box, basking in the evil in which he resides. He cannot take back what has already been repeatedly said, and he is at war, seeking shadows. I no longer look for the sunshine. I seek shadows and hide in the darkness. It is a shame. It is shame that has brought me to such altitude. Shame for the crimes of the committed. The hate spread throughout the world is finally catching up with me. I spread that hate as communicable disease, using mediums of destruction, bullets lined with hate, shot from guns, shattering hearts, bombs derived from hate, dropped from planes, and drowned minds in infantile paralysis. I spread hate with the same fashion that I made munitions, focused on toxins of greed that eat mankind alive. I no longer struggle with that conscience. It never existed, or so it seems. It does not start that way. One nightmare led to another. I had to cover tracks of error and mistake that betrayed my beatitude. I could no longer think straight. Lines of insurgency. My surreptitious plans were born to hate and genuflect the genocide bred from these farms of deceit. Who but a fool could fight such forces that stem from evil, the devil's guide? I am mankind dying. He shouted, and the lonely listened, and the hunger listened, and those fed and fat heartily moved from their couches of insurrection. You cannot wage a revolution from your living room.
Wow. Love it. Love it. Tell you what, we're gonna get rolling on. Um,
Okay,
but I do want to thank you very much. Again, the book is Only the Shadows Breathe by Lawrence George Jaffe. It's available everywhere. Um, you can order it from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, your corner bookstore. Although most bookstores don't stock every book of poetry that comes out, you can order it. And it's been fantastic talking to you, Larry.
that's
And
great, William.
I hope you sell a zillion copies of it because that means I can retire.
And I could retire with you.
All right, there we go. We'll go
I
we'll go
mean,
fishing or
I
something.
really, I really, I hope people. I was nervous about giving you this book. Um,
I like it.
I thought, what people are going to see this and they go, "What the hell is he doing?" Um, and would they make fun of the poetry because they're mystery fiends? And would they make fun of the mystery if they were poetry fiends? And then I just said, the heck with it, just do it.
Cross genre often is met with some derision, but it tends to enhance both genres that it comes through. And I thank you for undertaking this project, and I was delighted when you offered it to us. All right.
Thank you, sir.
You have a great day, and we'll be setting this recording out all over the place, and I will send a copy of it to you before I place it anywhere.
Sounds good.
Ending the recording now.